This is the Stories from the Subconscious podcast, a podcast that dares to challenge belief systems through the simple practice of storytelling. Because the truth is, we only know what we know. And when we hear trustworthy and inspiring stories, it allows the inner mind to naturally begin to ask the question, could that be possible for me too? I'm your host, Deevy. Join me as we adopt expansive belief systems and celebrate the stories of those who dare to seek beyond what they once knew possible. Together, let's explore stories from the subconscious. Welcome back to another episode of the Stories from the Subconscious podcast. I'm your host, Deevy, and I am beyond excited for today's episode, and I'm going to tell you why. Over Christmas in 2022, I got this crazy idea. I had been to a live podcast event before in Austin, which is, just to give you context, where you go to a physical location and there is a stage and an audience and there's a live podcast that's happening there being recorded on site, and then it later gets distributed and aired on the podcast, but you're there for it live and it's an in-person experience. And I thought it was super interesting. And I got the opportunity to have the Stories from the Subconscious podcast be sponsored by an event space in Austin, Texas. That's called Mira, which is so cute. It is the definition of an Instagrammable location, by the way. So check it out. And I called up my friend Danielle and I said, what do you think about doing a live podcast together? So Danielle was 100% game. And so we put our heads together and we're like, okay, but what do we want to talk about? What is of value? What makes sense? What is the story of our lives? Or is it more about doing the work? And we came up with this idea that kind of combined all of the elements, and we called it Own Your Subconscious, a live podcast event exploring, honoring, and loving all of the parts that make us whole. Yeah. It just still makes me so happy. So we chose this because, one, first of all, it's badass. And Danielle and I are both into badassery. Okay. Second of all, it is very fun and combines both like the title of Danielle's podcast, which is Own Your Shit, and my podcast, which is Stories from Your Subconscious. And third, it is exactly what the invitation is from this work, the work that one does with diving deep into their subconscious, into understanding how they function, understanding how the world works, deepening their consciousness. It is an invitation to own and to love and to acknowledge all of the parts that make you whole, because it's not all love and light and rainbows all of the time. There's light and there's shadow. And the more that we can embrace all of the parts of us, the better we feel overall. So today's episode is the recording from this live experience, which is so fun. And so that's why it maybe will sound or look or feel a little bit different than what you're used to. And that's okay, because it's good to change things up sometimes. And we focused on one part of ourselves that we all tend to know very well, but maybe we don't love this part consistently, or maybe at all. And that part of ourselves is the inner critic, the one that tells you you should do this or you shouldn't do that, and tends to make you feel like less than, or that you're not doing enough, or that you're just straight up not enough. So the question being, how can we find the space or the compassion or the understanding to also love this inner critic? Because they're kind of always criticizing you. So how do you love a part or this thing that doesn't always feel good when love is supposed to feel good, right? I don't know. We'll find out. So we opened our event with a fun and quick dance party. We maybe twerked a little bit. I don't know. And then we closed it all out with some heartfelt questions and answers. And in the middle, we owned our subconscious in the most loving way possible. And so my invitation to you today, as you listen to this episode, is to do the same. Today's episode features Danielle Gertner. And she is a speaker and an MC and an ownership coach and a community builder and a podcast host who is personally on a mission to unlock the world's radical confidence with her signature Own Your Shit method. And I can tell you, I've worked with Danielle before, and she has definitely rocked my world. But Danielle uses a unique blend of neuro-linguistic programming, that's NLP, trauma-informed somatic work, subconscious story rewriting, which you know I love, and primal play to help her clients make soul-shifting transformations that last a lifetime. Because I don't know about you, but I'm into the sustainable work and not just the this is cute and it's just for now work. I want this shit to last. Now, let's get into today's episode. Please join me in welcoming Danielle Gertner to the Stories from the Subconscious podcast.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Wow. This is very exciting. Yay. Thank you guys seriously so much for being here. It's a big deal. It's a big deal, and I don't take it lightly that you all chose to trust and to come here and to do something new and different and to come out to something that's like, what even is a live podcast? Good question. And we're creating that tonight. It's whatever that we want it to be. So welcome. Welcome to the creation kingdom. And then I'm going to invite us to take 3 intentional breaths together to really get present in this space, to welcome in a sense of calmness, to welcome in a sense of presence, and dare I say, even welcome in even just 1% more relaxation, because it's going to help us to really fully participate and be here. And be here. So feel free to close your eyes or open them. And for those who are listening to this podcast recording, if you're driving, please do not close your eyes. But go ahead and get nice and comfortable. And let's inhale in through the nose. Exhale out the mouth. Good. And you can even make sound as you do. 2 more times, inhaling in through the nose. Exhale out the mouth. Good. Last time, inhale through the nose, holding it at the top. Take in 1 more sip of air to just prove to yourself you can do more than you think you can. And then exhale, release, letting it go. And for even just a moment, becoming aware of your body in space, perhaps your feet on the floor, or your hands on your lap, or the texture of fabric against your seat. And just allowing whatever it is that you're beginning to notice to remind you that you are present. You are here now, and ultimately you are supported. And whenever you're ready, if those eyes are closed, go ahead and open them back up with a refreshed sense of presence. Isn't it amazing what just like a little bit of intention can do? My goodness. All right, well, maybe let's take a second to introduce ourselves. I would love for Danielle, you to just share a little bit. What's your name? What you do? Who that is?
Who that is? Let me make sure I don't nip slip you guys in this too.
Well, that's a part
Hold
2.
on.
Let's not.
There we go. All right, we're good. That should tell you enough about me right there. Let me not nip slip you on the live podcast. You said share my name and just a little bit about me.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Well, first of all, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you all so much. There's so many of you I don't know in this room, and thank you for showing up to something that was just an idea a couple weeks ago and something like, that could be pretty fun. Also, I'm really surprised nobody's sitting in the Queen's chair. So if you feel at all like you, thank you.
There we go,
I sat in it just to test it out, so I appreciate that.
That's good.
I'm super, super excited to be here. My name is Danielle Gertner. I am an ownership coach, and my mission, passion, greatest joy in life is inspiring people to own their shit. And it's as plain and simple as that, taking radical responsibility over your life, claiming your life as yours, taking your power back, whatever it is to you, whatever you want to call it, remembering that we have the power to write whatever story, no matter where we came from, who told us, who was writing with our pen previously. This moment is a great time to take that pen back, and I do that in a lot of different ways. One of my favorite ways to do that is through movement. May has been a beautiful guest at many of my movement classes, and for me in my journey, that is where owning my shit started, was the gym. To make a long story pretty short, I played sports my whole life. I got to college and I was always really, really underweight. Drank Pediasure till I was all the way through high school, and I was always just kind of limp, like a little limp noodle. And so when I got to college, I found the gym for the first time, and I was like, man, if only I could grow these muscles and get a fat ass and a flat stomach, then I will be confident. Then I will have the fulfillment that I want, right? I think so many of us, we chase that body as the mask for what we really are wanting to chase, which is internal confidence. Because guess what, guys? I got the fat ass and the strong arms. They came after a lot of hard work, but the deeply unwavering confidence and fulfillment and connection to myself that I thought I was going to get from the gym didn't come. And it was really disheartening at first, of like, well, what the hell, universe and society, you told me to follow this process and follow these steps, and here I am, and I checked all the boxes. Where's my box of happiness and success and fulfillment? And it wasn't there. And I realized in that moment, well, I guess I got to change something. And the internal work started. And I know that is a story that I share with many others. It starts in fitness, and then you discover there's a lot more to life. And me taking care of this body is so much more than just because I want to look good. It's because I want my true essence of my soul, which she is loud and she is sassy and she will twerk all over you and she will drop F-bombs and she will sit barefoot crisscross applesauce in the front of her room. This body is the vessel for that soul to shine through. And I've been on that journey for about 6 years. I came here about 3 years ago in the middle of fucking COVID, tried to get out of my lease, and my landlord was like, nobody else is gonna rent this place, so you're screwed, you're moving here. And it was the best decision of my life. It was the scariest decision of my life. I've never owned my shit more than being in this city. And there's more that I'll share. Thank you for the opportunity to do so. Yeah, I love what I do, and I'm really happy to be here. So thank you guys for being willing to want to listen to our stories.
Heck
It's pretty cool.
I know, Miss Wiggles in the house. Thanks, Danielle. And I'll take just 2 seconds as well, just in case we haven't had the opportunity to meet yet. My name is Deevy, and I'm a certified hypnotherapist, which trust me, that was not a part of the plan. I had no idea that was in store for me. And yet it's the most beautiful and rewarding work I've ever had the pleasure of doing. I also am a sound healer and many other labels and things. But most importantly, what's most important to me is that I'm here authentically. And every day I'm learning more and more the power of vulnerability. So it's really exciting for me to be able to be here with you and to practice that vulnerability here tonight, authentically. And that really means the most. So thank you.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Where's your slippers?
Oh, they're here.
Okay, do y'all see the slippers? Okay, they needed a moment. If you're listening to this, they're just really fucking cute. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, that's all you need to know.
They're just really great.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
All right, so this isn't necessarily designed to be a deep dive discussion on parts therapy, which is a very sexy terminology, and it's a very incredible subset of work that can be practiced in many forms, but specifically in hypnotherapy is where I first met it. But I do feel it's worth acknowledging even just a little bit, even just a couple of bullet points about what does parts therapy mean, because I think that can sound intimidating or very foreign. And the truth is, we all naturally practice parts therapy, whether we know it or not. And just an example of that is, if you've ever responded to a question like, hey, are you going to go to that party on Saturday night? And you're like, oh, well, a part of me really wants to, but another part of me wants to stay in bed and just watch Netflix. You are already responding from a place where you're acknowledging you have these different parts that have different desires, different personalities, different perspectives, maybe even different voices in how they speak. And so this practice of parts therapy is really an invitation to get to know yourself on a different level. It's said that we have 10 to 15 parts. I'm not sure how much validity there is to that, because we can really call out very many parts of us, but it is said that there's about 10 to 15 parts of us. And a part could be the part that feels vulnerable, the part that feels hurt, the part that feels excited to be doing a live podcast. We can call out all of these various parts of ourselves. And then once we do that, we can start to engage with them as if they're a seat at the table. Just like I'm here with Danielle and we're facing each other, I can almost imagine the part that feels scared to jump out of an airplane. I can imagine that part sitting before me. What does she look like? Is she having a confident stance? Probably not. She's probably like trying to hide, and her shoulders are hunched over, and maybe her voice is whispering because she's really scared. And we start to truly embody all of these parts of ourselves with the invitation to explore this concept. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to keep it light without going into a deep dive, because there are therapists out there who this is their entire career. So we're not going to go quite into that deep of a dive, but just know that there's a lot to be peeled back here. There's all layers. There's a lot of parts.
Can I add something to that?
Oh, please do.
I would love to add some. Now you guys got the joke? It was funny. That was great. Part-time comedian over here. Yeah. I just want to add one thing to this. Raise your hand if your desire in life is to love yourself unconditionally. Is that one of your desires? Maybe of many. Your only desire, one of your desires. What about if it's to share that life with somebody else who loves you unconditionally? Anybody else have that dream or desire? Okay. Sure. And I just want to share that it was through this work, and as May and I were talking about, well, what would we talk about on a podcast? Like, we could talk about so many things. And we started to ask ourselves, well, what has really helped us get to the place that we are today, where we both feel like we're very radically expressed humans? You feel like we're radically expressed humans? I feel like we are.
And solid head nods.
Solid head nods.
Yeah, I think okay.
Very radical. And it is parts work, parts therapy, whatever you want to call it. Who's sitting at the dinner table is a way that I like to phrase it, is one of the ways to get there, one of the most powerful ways to get there. To receive that unconditional love from yourself, we first have to learn to face, to embrace, to love and honor the fear, the anger, the inner child, all the parts that we're going to go into today, and to be willing, as hard and sometimes scary as it is, to show those parts of ourselves to somebody else, and to take that risk that they're going to see all of those parts of ourselves, some of those parts that we've maybe shoved in a closet our whole lives, and they're going to know how to love and be willing, maybe even if they don't know, they're going to be willing to try to love that part of us as well. And I love that this is where we landed when we're like, this is what we're going to talk about. And I don't remember exactly how we got here, but I'm so glad we did, because if there's anything that I owe my radical self-expression to, and this is what we were talking about, it is through loving all of these different parts. And I know I'll share this with May. I hope, and we hope today, when you walk out of these doors, you have a new appreciation and a deeper love for maybe a part of you that you have been neglecting, ashamed of. This is your opportunity to welcome him, her, them to the couch, to snuggle, put your arm around him, we're going to watch a movie. All right? Is everyone okay with that? Cool.
That sounds pretty good to me.
Sounds pretty good. I'll bring the popcorn.
Okay.
Kettle corn.
Kettle corn. I like it. Me gusta. Yeah, so, and we're about to dive into a little bit more of the storytelling portion of this, so it's not more like a lecture, so bear with me here. We're almost there. But I do want to call forward that this practice can be fun. Dare I say that working through our traumas, like, we take it very seriously, and it is serious work, but we can also have fun with it. And what I mean by that is, and we'll get to this a little bit when we get introduced to Danielle's inner critic.
She's a doll.
She's a doll. But when we are like, okay, I'm feeling this feeling, noted, I'm having this reaction, right? Like, someone says something to you and you blow up. You're like, whoa, I just blew up. This is like an opportunity to be like, okay, I just had a reaction. Let me just notice what I'm feeling. And maybe you can give a label to that feeling. Maybe you're like, that was anger. You're like, okay, anger. And you start to become aware, where am I feeling it in my body? I feel it in my throat. My throat feels hot. My stomach is churning and my face is red. I feel hot. And you're like, okay. And you're like, you can give now this anger that you know where it lives, you can give it a name because you know what it feels like. It feels like a hot balloon. So now you know it's a hot balloon sensation, but maybe you give it a name like, I don't know, balloony. And so now you've got this part that is your angry part that you can now call balloony. So let's just say then I call up Danielle and Danielle's like, yo, what are you doing, May? And I'm like, balloony is very present right now. And balloony is telling me that we need to stay home tonight. So you can start to get playful with this idea that we have feelings and they come up in certain ways. And we can communicate now from their perspective. And what this does, and again, we won't get into the details of it, but I'm giving you some nuggets that you can maybe like go home and Google some things. But it starts to create a process of dissociation. In that you're creating distance between yourself and that feeling, that anger, that reaction. So then it's like you are claiming ownership through a dissociation, which almost seems counterintuitive, but it allows it to be not so reactive. And then we're starting to understand that we have a relationship with balloony. I'm regretting that name. I want to be honest.
I'm so here for it.
I'm genuinely regretting that, but we're going to go
call
with
you and
it.
be like, how's balloony?
I'm like, she's present. We're able to create a relationship with it and ask questions. How are you doing today, balloony? What do you need right now? Balloony's like, I'm balloony. Balloony's like, I need a bath. We can start to ask questions and engage with this part of us to understand how we can best serve ourselves. So we start to break down like, yes, I am May. I am a complex human being. And I'm made up of all these parts. And all of these parts have different personalities. They have different needs. They have different textures, different feelings. They dress differently. Like, this is not everyday May, but this also isn't balloony. I'm not sure exactly. This is podcasting May.
Yeah,
so.
I need a name at some point.
This is potty. Nope, I hated it. No, we hate it. No, we hate it. We hate it.
You might be stuck with it. Patty.
Patty. Okay, Patty feels better. Potty was...
I knew where you were going with that. That was funny.
My heart was in the right place.
Yeah, it was in the right place. There's something that you shared, a word that helped me, and I want to share this because when I first heard about dissociating from my emotions or what was happening, these parts of me, because of the way the word dissociation is used, I had a really hard time understanding, well, if I dissociate from it, so just if anybody feels that way, if they hear that word and they're like, well, how am I feeling it? I really like the word disidentify. I'm disidentifying with that part of me. I'm not pulling myself away from it because we want you to feel it. If you're gonna do parts work, when I feel my inner critic or dude, she was popping off this morning. Dirty Gert, what? That's her name. It's Dirty Gert. And not in a bad way. I love that name, just was a nickname. But we want to feel it fully because that is how we integrate. That is how we welcome her to the table, is not give her the stiff arm. It's give me your hand, come sit down on my couch. We're gonna stay for a while. So just that, I remember when it was my trauma coach who first said the word disidentify, and I was like,
yeah.
That
does feel better.
That clicks a little bit more in my brain right now.
Yeah, that does feel better.
Just an opportunity.
I appreciate that little nugget. And I like that you talked about integration, and we're going to get to all of that. Okay, I feel like this is a good segue.
It's a good segue.
Okay,
everyone got their bubble water?
We've got bubblies galore. Because what I was hoping is that we could meet Dirty Gert tonight. And Dirty Gert is Danielle's inner critic. Now, before we chime in and meet Dirty Gert, for those who are here live, when you walked in, there was a little prompt here that said something along the lines of like, sometimes I tell myself that I should do this or not or should not do that. And you offered up some responses. That, of course, was intentional because it's starting to churn the gears of we are composed of parts of us. And the should, like, oh, I should really run today. I should date more. These shoulds are often indicators that the inner critic is speaking, that Dirty Gert has got the mic, a hard grip on the mic, and she's talking loudly than everyone else, than Balloony and Patty. We like Patty. Patty's good. These are my parts. But, we're combining parts, but you get my what I'm trying to say here. So, anyways, why don't we just hear a little bit about Dirty Gert? And I would love to even know about this morning, maybe. Like, let's make it real. And, like, how was Dirty Gert present for you this morning?
Well, I think it's, before I tell you about this morning, I think it's important to share my journey with Dirty Gert, because when I didn't recognize that she was a part of me, I thought that's just who I was and how I was supposed to be. Does anybody have an inner critic that just plays? It's like your least favorite Spotify song that just you can't get off repeat. It's like the bad dream of, what's that movie?
I don't know.
What's the movie with the Groundhog Day?
Oh, wow.
And it repeats. Yeah,
Yep.
That's the movie.
Groundhog Day.
And this was before I understood, like, this is just a part of me that is pointing out a lot of my deepest fears and needs that are not being met, that is talking to me. So we have a very, very deep, close relationship, Miss Dirty Gert and I. And so this morning, and this is something that I navigate every day, I want to share that too. Parts work, I don't think, is ever something that you understand it, so it never shows up. It shows up every day, and it's this constant, like you would build a relationship with your roommates. You're building a relationship with your internal roommates. That's what you're doing. Yes. And so whether you love them or not, you're living with them. So find the peace. And, something that you shared and you alluded to is curiosity, getting curious about what is present for this part of me. So Dirty Gert, this morning, I woke up, the last couple of days, I've woken up with a lot of anxiety. And I want to probably attribute part of that, at least. I don't always try to find the reason why, because it just sometimes is what it is. But got back into town Tuesday night and just have been kind of feeling catch up all week. You guys ever got back in the middle of the week? You're like, when is the end?
Right. What day is it?
I don't even know.
Yeah.
You said it was Monday. I was like, holy shit. But anyway, so I woke up this morning, and Mondays are my CEO Mondays. That's what I call them. It's where I spend hours on my business and focusing on the bigger picture. And what a great day for her to show up and talk shit about how all the dreams I have for my business are never going to come to life. And these are some of the things that she says to me on a daily basis. You're not good enough. Anybody heard that one before in their own head?
Oh, yeah.
You're not smart enough. You're not capable enough. You're going to get left behind. What is another one? What's one of your favorites, Dirty Gert? What else do you like to say to me? You're an imposter. You're a floozy. My grandma used to use that word a lot. You're floozy. So there she was when I woke up this morning. I'm brushing my teeth, and here, as I'm half thinking about the list of things that I need to do today, echoing me going through my list is Dirty Gert, like, you suck. You're not gonna accomplish any of these. And so I actually filmed a video. I've put this on my story today because I recognize an old pattern show up. So she showed up, and what I used to do in the past, because I'm a fighter, tell me not to do something, watch me, I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it 10 times better than you thought I was gonna do it, because that's just my personality. And so when I hear the Dirty Gert, my initial reaction is to prove her wrong. Well, let me outwork the shit you're talking. Let me show you how productive I'm going to be today. So I'll push through the energy. But what I was sharing on my story today was, I don't want to create work anymore from that energy where I have to prove my inner critic wrong. You're never going to get anywhere that you want to go. And so I'm hearing her, and I chose to listen to her. I was like, okay, I'm not going to start CEO Monday right now. Sit down on my couch, mamacita. Let's have a conversation. What's going on? And we talk, just like you shared, just like we're talking right now. And personifying her has been one of the most powerful tools I've ever used. A lot of times I write letters, but sometimes I'll literally, I'll be talking to a pillow or my cat. I'll pretend my cat Belle. Poor Belle.
Poor Belle.
Poor Belle. Today I'm like, Dirty Gert. Tomorrow it's Gertrude. That's my ego. So we have this conversation. And the first thing I'll do is I'll just recognize, like, hey, Dirty Gert, I recognize and I feel that you're really present right now. Maybe these words don't come out verbatim right now, but it's a good way to think about it. I recognize that you're present today. Would you like to share something with me? The answer is always yes. Ask your critic if you ever want her to say, him, them to say something. They're never going to say no. They're going to be like, oh, shit, give me this fucking microphone. Let's go.
I thought you'd never ask.
And so I'll give her, I journaled this morning. I let her brain dump for about 5 minutes, all the things that she had to say to me. Open, just say what you got to say. And then I'll breathe, because it hurts, right? Those things don't feel good. You suck, and who do you think you are, and what do you think you're doing? And it's so interesting. She loves to come up when we're doing well, right? Anybody experience that? When you're like about to get this promotion or this opportunity or like this event's happening, and she was like, who the fuck are you to sit in front of people and talk about your story? The fuck? They're gonna think you're stupid. They're gonna think that, Yeah. So anyway, we go through this dance. Like, what do you want to share with me? Share what you need to share. I'll breathe. I'll give her thanks and gratitude for being brave enough to share what she needs to share. And then I'll ask a really important question. What is it that you feel that you need? What is it that you need? What are you not getting? What is it that you desire? Or what is the fear that I recognize there? Because what often happens when we have these voices, this inner critic, she is not getting what she wants, or we're in a fight with somebody and there's ego there. If I dive down deeper, there is either an unmet need or a fear that's presenting themselves. Yeah. And so her fear, maybe in this moment, was fear of abandonment, fear of judgment, whatever it was. And we do the dance. And what she needed was for me to stop working and to go to the pool, smoke a little bit of weed, which I did. And
not bad.
I pulled the card, and 4 hours later,
Feeling better?
Feeling a lot better.
Yeah.
So, that's a little walk in the park with me this morning.
Yeah. There's so many things that I love about that, because I really was there with you. Like, I was there with your cat. Like, you really painted the picture for me, which I really appreciate as a visual person. And what I hear from that is that you cultivated compassion for Dirty Gert, in that there isn't just a voice in your ear for no reason at all. That there is reason.
Yes.
And that Dirty Gert was grabbing the mic and screaming to be heard because she had things to say.
Yes.
And so you gave her the mic. It doesn't mean that you accepted what she was speaking as truth, but you let it out.
Yes.
Because there is power in working all the way through something to arrive on the other side. Yeah. And when I heard you arrive at the other side she was saying, I have needs. This is what I need right now. I'm not in the place to work. I need to go to the pool. I need to smoke a little ganj. I got to chill for a little bit.
Smoke out the pipe. You know what I'm
Hit
saying?
the pipe, you know. And then you were on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And there's always empowerment on the other side of these deep feelings.
Two things that you shared that I think are so important to highlight. The perspective shift that there is wisdom here. Everything that comes up within you, there is wisdom here. Even if it's the most annoying thought, there is wisdom here. And I forgot what the second thing was, but the first thing was really good. There is wisdom here. The neutrality. There is wisdom here, and this information is neutral. I, highest self, Danielle, most divine self, whatever you want to call it within you, see the wisdom here and disidentify myself with what she has to say. Her words are not truth. They can be truth if I give that type of energy to her, but am I choosing that? Because let's come back to ownership. Whose story am I owning here, hers or mine? I will honor her, I will listen to her, but I don't have to take on that story as mine, just as I don't have to take on your story as mine. I can choose to, but I don't. So that shift of perspective of there is wisdom here, the curiosity, and then the neutrality.
Yeah.
Who writes the story, you or this part of you? I love that's really, really big difference.
Let me ask you this, because what I'm hearing is also that you're developing some compassion for yourself in these various parts that we're calling out, quite specifically Dirty Gert.
Calling up, I like to say.
Oh, okay.
She's being called up.
She is present in the space. How do you feel that this process of developing compassion for these various parts of you has now been mirrored out into the real world in your other people relationships?
Such a good question. Well, I love that you shared the importance of play. I love that you shared the importance of play because I was just sharing with a friend. I love Austin. Don't get me wrong. It's fucking phenomenal. Everything you want to do under the sun, whether you want to take your top off, you want to go to a drum circle, or you want to do some ayahuasca and some ketamine. We got you. Any color of the crayon box. And I love Austin for that. And I have found myself really burnt out of healing containers here right now. And I think there's seasons, but I feel very burnt out of going to circles and things like that are all about healing. And the reason that I identified was because there was a lack of play. I love that you and I showed up in our playful outfits today to talk about this stuff. Because without that play, it is really easy to get lost down the spiral of, holy shit, there's so much wrong with me. And that compassion has allowed me to be so much more playful with Dirty Gert. Like, I named her Dirty Gert, right? I named her Dirty Gert.
I love that at such a deep level.
Yeah, just in the name. And it's not even like it's actually a nickname that my friend Suzelle used to call me in college. I won't tell you a story as to why.
We don't have time for that.
Know that story. It's a different podcast. Different podcast.
Okay.
But that playfulness has allowed me to soften my edges because the inner critic can be so intense. Y'all know. You all hear it. You look in the mirror. This is wrong with you. This is wrong with you. You don't look great in that.
Right.
She's there. But if I put that playful spin, a lot of times I found myself laughing at her and with her. Not in a like, you're stupid, but in a just like, she's here. Okay, let's go. Come along for the ride. The little sister who nags you and nags you and nags you and is so annoying, but all she really wants is to drive in the front, like come with you to the gas station, right? If you have a younger sibling, that's it. They just want your time. They want your time. They want your attention. And what that's allowed me to do is if I recognize somebody else's inner critic, or if I'm just in an experience like this and I feel my inner critic, like she's sitting with me right now. Don't get me wrong, she's here. And I love her for that because she's protecting me. She's looking out for me. Yeah. But what that allows me to remember is I guarantee every single one of you had some sort of inner critic thought walking in the room today. Am I wrong? Something. Maybe. Yeah. Or today, maybe not like walking in the exact room, but I know for a lot of people, when you walk into a new space, that inner critic pops up. Who's going to be there? What are they going to think of me? Am I dressed okay? Yes. Should I sit there? Should I sit there? Should I eat the snack? Should I not eat the snack? Should I go say hi to May first? Right?
100%.
You're going to look stupid. Sit down. Soak it up. Don't kick your drink over.
Don't say the word potty.
Don't say potty.
Dang it.
Damn it, May.
The one thing.
You're so stupid. And so it's just allowed kind of like a deep breath. She can be there and she doesn't have to rule my life. She can be part of my life and I want her to be part of my life because I love her and she has things that she needs to share with me. Yeah. But I don't have to let her rule and filter this experience that we're having together. Even your inner critics that may have popped up here today, allow them to be with you, but don't let them be the only way you see this experience today. So just pause there.
I love it. Very much wisdom. Very much
See
like.
these gray hairs?
Yeah.
You guys got my right side. I did it on purpose so you could see my
wisdom whiskers in there.
Got my wisdom hairs.
Hi, I promise this will be a very brief interruption to this fabulous episode, but how could I possibly miss out on this opportunity to extend an invitation out to you? Because this podcast is an extension of a greater vision that I have to connect as a community. It is special and unique to find others who are brave and courageous enough to be willing to expand their belief systems, to deep dive into and beyond what they know to be possible, and to seek what is true for them versus what we've been told to think should be true. And that's why I created a Patreon membership community, and it is a very, very special place for me. We connect on a weekly basis via oracle card readings that happen every Monday that allow you to then have this little nugget to hold on to, this focused awareness to allow your mind to seek out the theme of that week, and therefore offering you the space to have a very hypnotic week. And then we connect on a monthly level via various events, such as our Consciousness Seekers Book Club. We love. And we have quarterly hypnosis challenges, which is when we connect for about a week and do a daily hypnosis practice together, which I guide you through on a specific topic so it can really plant seeds of transformation within the subconscious mind. It is my most favorite thing ever. My Patreon is designed to be accessible and affordable, starting at just $5 a month. And I'll be honest, it's one of the factors that genuinely helps to keep this podcast alive. Because I didn't know this, but there's kind of a lot that goes into making a podcast. Who knew? And I have good news. We have a new feature out on Patreon that allows you to have a free trial. So you can come on to our Patreon, see what it's all about, experience it for yourself, and then see if you'd like to continue or not. It's nice to have choices. So go ahead and visit patreon.com/belief system and join the subconscious revolution that's happening out on my community. We're having a really good time. We're expanding our belief systems and we're coming back home to what is true for ourselves. And that is not something that anyone else can do for us. All right, now let's get back to this fabulous episode.
Okay, so we do have a little takeaway, like a little thank you gift for you all that I want to share with you. And then for those who are listening, this will be in the show notes. But this is a really good segue because you've alluded to quite a lot of this. But basically, we have a little mini guide of how to begin exploring, honoring, and loving all the parts that make you whole. Mm-hmm. And we've talked a little bit about this, so I feel like this is like a review. Like this is like the review before the quiz, except there's no quiz, it's just life. So if I could share this with you for just a moment, is that okay?
Want me to pass it around?
Sure, if you want to.
Yeah,
Here
I'll
you
just
go.
I'm actually
We're having a teacher moment.
Give
This
them a
is teacher
stack
moment.
and let them just move it around.
So first we begin by allowing in the awareness. We first have to allow the awareness in. And that comes in 5 steps. And there's obviously more or less, but this is just guidance for you. 1, acknowledge what you might be feeling. And you may be able to label it or maybe not, but just do your best to acknowledge what you might be feeling. 2, becoming aware of what it feels like in the body. So starting to notice where and how it shows up, the feeling, the sensation, the tension, the color, whatever it is. And then take 3 deep letting go breaths and allow in a sense of relaxation. Because this work does involve a certain amount of relaxation, of presence, of calmness, of curiosity. And that happens in a place of calmness. So oftentimes 3 breaths, there's something just magical about 3. Good things come in 3s. 4, thank that part for showing up. Even if it's the angry part, even if it's the potty patty, dirty Gert, thank that part for showing up because they are doing what they believe to be best to protect you in the way that they know how. Mm-hmm. And then 5, you can begin to interact with that part of you from that place. And what that looks like is connecting with compassion and curiosity. So we're stepping already into that place of non-judgment, and we're allowing curiosity to kind of steer the ship, if you will. And so we can then begin to ask questions to this part, much like Danielle demonstrated, like in another chair. It could be your cat, it could be a pillow, it could be a water bottle, whatever it is. Or maybe you have your eyes closed, like in hypnotherapy, this would look a little bit different because we're gonna go deeper. This is gonna be during a session, but you can also do it, on your couch, just the same. But you can begin to ask questions, but you are allowing that part to answer. Does that make sense? Because that's a pretty critical part of this, is to ask the question to Dirty Gert and then allow yourself to receive the answer. And that might come in words, that might come in a sensation, it might come in a knowing, it might come in some other various way, but giving yourself the time to receive, allowing yourself to receive. Does that make sense? So I like to begin with questions like, how are you doing today? And just seeing how they respond. How are they doing? Asking, what is it that you need right now? Because you've come up, you're present here. What is it that you need? What is your purpose? Why are you here today? Do you have a specific role? What is your purpose here? 4, how did you come into being? How did you get here? What's the story? And 5, what do you fear? Because that's probably something that's coming up, or you're, as we start to like dig at the roots, perhaps that's really what is there at the root of the tree. And going through that process, allowing yourself to receive whatever it is you receive, and then greeting all of that with gratitude. Because we're allowing in that compassion. We're understanding that there are different parts of us that, yes, there's ownership there. Yes, it's radical responsibility, but that's not me that's holding the mic. That's Dirty Gert. And so you can thank that part for showing up. Thank you, Dirty Gert. Thanks for this clarity. Thank you for giving me this realization that I need to go to the pool and smoke some weed today. Cool. Dope. Good day.
It's a great day.
So thank that part for showing up. They're loving you in the way that they know how, with what they have available to them. And you can establish a new working relationship with that part if needed. So if you're like, hey, I understand that you're trying to keep me safe here, but actually how I need that is this way. And you can start to negotiate with this part and create a new working relationship. What would you need in order to feel safe? Oh, jumping in the pool once a week? Cool, I can do that, Dirty Gert. Yep. Agreement made. Sign the contract. We have new arrangements. And this is our new working relationship moving forward. And so you are getting your needs met, and so is Dirty Gert. And now we're in partnership, which feels pretty good. And and 3, offering it what it needs. So again, if it's like, I need to jump in Barton Springs and I need to smoke a joint, well, you better do those things. Because now you have a partner. This is a partnership. You're in a relationship. Dirty Gert has a seat at the table. How would you honor a guest in your house? They're like, I would like a glass of milk, please. And you're like, too fucking bad. You're going to sit there and be thirsty. No, you say, of course, let me get that glass of milk for you. So just honoring the guest at the table and giving them what it is that they've asked for. Because if you've ever asked for something that you need, you know that takes courage. So there's so much more that can be said about parts work and parts therapy, but we wanted to kind of just introduce it lightly, offer it through storytelling, and have a lighthearted, fun, loving conversation that ultimately is some pretty profound, beautiful, deep work. So we're going to take a pause for a moment and see if anyone has any questions or comments or thoughts or concerns, whichever part of you may be rumbling. And there maybe isn't. Oh, Jesse. Yes.
So that last part, offering it what it needs.
Yes.
What if what if some part of you really needs to get your work done on Monday morning?
That's a great question. There is a line, and I was sharing this, I don't know if I was sharing this with you today, but oftentimes I give my inner critic 5 to 15 minutes in the morning. I did this morning. I set a timer. She had 15 minutes. Go in, bitch. Go in. Say what you got to say, because you got 15 minutes. And after these 15 minutes, or whenever this happens, we got stuff to do. Still taking the pause to fully recognize you're a business owner, right? You got shit to do. You can't spend every day. We're lucky that CEO Mondays have more flexibility. Give it the time that you have as best as you can. Try to get as quickly to the root of what it is that inner critic needs. And I would say, too, start paying attention to what is triggering the part of you to show up. Because what happened for me this morning, give you one guess. What am I doing?
Scrolling.
I was caught in the scroll, right? And then all these thoughts popped up. So when you're experiencing something, and I'll share this in the frame of my grief. Some of you know this, some of you don't. I lost my brother last year. Actually now 2 years ago. And the last year and a half, almost 2 years, I've spent figuring out how do I grieve and still run a business. I don't choose when the grief shows up. It could be at 1 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it doesn't matter. And so how do I, if I'm about to go to something like this or go speak on a stage, this happened to me right when I was about to speak on stage in Chicago, flew all the way there, and I don't know, nothing triggered it. I just started hysterically crying. I was really missing him, I think because he loves Chicago. So what I've learned to do is I hold space for that grief. And I'm really transparent about with the people in my community about what I'm going through. Have I not told you when I'm grieving? I'll tell them, like, I'm grieving really hard right now. And so be honest. Take that into your work with you and use it as an art. Even your inner critic, even the doubt, even the, okay, she's telling you, he's telling you, you're not good enough. What's one of the things your inner critic loves to say to you? Can you share that? What's one of the things?
Ooh, we gotta eat healthy.
We gotta eat healthy.
Gotta eat healthy.
Ugh, you better eat healthy, right? So you honor that. And maybe you ask some questions. Well, where is this really coming from? Is it coming from this place of, well, we know eating healthy is good for us. You probably, highest self, you knows that. But if this inner critic is coming from a place of one of your parents or coaches growing up telling you that you have to look a certain way and be a certain size because of the activity, whatever it is, and acting from that place is really detrimental. But if you can find the beauty in, well, I want to eat healthy because this business is really important to me and I know that this type of food is going to help me be able to knock out this project better. So hold space for it, set the limits around the time that you're going to give it, and be firm in those boundaries. Who runs the show? You or the inner critic? You do. The inner critic, we forget that because we're not taught these things growing up. We're not taught that our mind is not in control, our heart is. And so our mind grows up thinking like, all right, I've bullied the heart down enough that it knows its fucking place. You're coming back. So set those boundaries and see what you can do to take that inner critic lesson, knowledge, new information with you into your work.
Yeah.
Is that helpful? Okay.
That was a really good question.
That was a really good question.
Just to rephrase it so that those who are listening maybe didn't hear the original question was, okay, so your inner critic is saying, I want to go to the pool and smoke weed, but what if you also have to get work done today? Like, it's a CEO Monday, so that actually does need to happen today. And so from the perspective of like a hypnotherapy session, you can start to then have multiple parts as a part of a conversation. So again, we can almost visualize pulling up a chair and having these various parts, and then they start to negotiate. So you can ask a question to the part that honors CEO Mondays and saying, what is it that you need today? They're like, I really need to send these 5 emails. And then there's the inner critic part that's also at the table. It's like, well, I need to go to the pool and smoke a joint today. It's like, okay. And then you can have those 2 parts ask each other questions, and they can have a conversation, and you are listening to their answers, but of course you are speaking them, or it's, this is occurring internally. Again, this is like in a hypnotherapy session, but you can really start to get creative and call forth these other parts. And sometimes there is conflict and we're going back and forth. I'm not sure how to resolve this. And at those points, it's really interesting to bring in your spiritual self or your inner guide self or whatever it is. Maybe you're not spiritual, or maybe, for you it's God, maybe it's angels, maybe it's something else entirely. But then to bring them and give them a seat at the table, typically that's when the conflict is resolved, because that's like your wiser self, your higher self comes in and they're like, listen, everyone, there is time for both weed, pool, and 5 emails today. What if you do the pool, then the 5 emails, then you have your weed? And everyone's like, what a great idea.
It's kind of like the devil and the angel a little bit.
It is.
The
original part's therapy, the devil and the angel.
Going back and forth at it.
Right.
And I love this idea. This is actually a really powerful activity you can do, is who's sitting at the dinner table. Something I teach in one of my programs. For me, there's 5 parts: the inner critic, the inner child, the shadow, the ego, and the heart. And what we started to practice, my inner child has an age. She's 7 years old. Her name's Lil D. And I start to...
I love it.
I have a rap I got to share with you, not on podcast. I'll share it later. Hutch, maybe, we'll go at it later too. But this is I love that of having them conversate with each other, because there is rarely just one part of you talking at one time. It's usually multiple. And so when that inner critic is saying something, like you are talking to the highest self, whoever it is who's sitting at the head, which hopefully is your heart. And we get to the place where it's the heart sitting at the head. And it's like, whoa, wait, guys, no fighting, right, kids? Stop fighting. All right, I hear what you want and I hear what you want. How can we give each of you a little bit of both, or can we come to a compromise?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so maybe, hopefully that didn't make it seem more complicated, but just I invite you to like welcome in creativity. Like this, again, this can be a fun process, even if we're negotiating the itinerary for a CEO Monday. We can ask for help is really what this is like such an invitation to be like, I don't need to figure this out. Let me ask for help and call it forward through the unidentifying of all of these various parts of me that have needs. Was that helpful or make sense?
And I found the timing, putting the time cap sometimes, because today I had a flexible day, but like I said, not always. So putting that time cap of like, let me give you whatever it is, you get 15, 20 minutes, whatever time you guys have, give them what they want and say, all right, let's focus on this for a little bit and see if you feel different. There's no one way, right? There's no one way to run your family. Your family is going to run itself the way your family is going to run itself. I got a real Jewish family. I don't know if your family is going to be the same way, you know? Pass the matzah.
I'm coming to your house.
I don't think they say that. At least not with that accent.
Okay.
I just did my Jews bad.
Okay. Maybe delete, cancel.
That was a great question, though.
Yeah,
that really
was
a great question, because you're absolutely right. It's like I made the joke of going to the pool and smoking the weed. I also didn't say I did that for an hour. I did that for about an hour, and then I got my ass back to work, and I worked for a little bit, and we were good. Just gave her that time. Yeah.
Yes, and that's a real life example too of like, okay, but I do actually need to get shit done. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Setting time limits on things is what
Yeah.
well, okay, Hillary, if you do this, then you can do this. But not being mad at yourself because you didn't get it.
No, you're meeting all of your various needs. Yeah, it's like such a compassionate practice to love on yourself in that way enough to honor all of your various needs, which might be conflicting at times. So it's good to like create new working relationships. How can we make everyone happy in this room?
I think it's a good lesson too in the yes and approach to life. It doesn't have to be either or. You can have a yes and. I can smoke my weed at the pool and I can get this stuff done today. I can do this and have that. We live in a spectrum, not black and white. We can exist across that spectrum. I honestly think it's more like a tornado than it is a spectrum. It's like it's not in like a bad way, but it's like it's all circulating and happening at the same time.
It's alive.
It's alive. It's all alive within us at the same time. So anyway, other questions.
Yeah,
we could go. I'll riff off that forever.
I don't have the right way to phrase it, but like, how do you start separating those different parts of you? Like, for me personally, it feels like my inner critic rules my life, and like has as long as I can remember. And so I feel like I don't know who's behind that. So like I don't know where to start with that separation of like what, not necessarily what the right answer is, but like taking the inner critic and putting it aside and then sitting back on what I want. I don't know what I want because I feel like they've always been in front.
Yes, and that's.
If that makes sense.
It does make
sense.
Yeah. So the question is it feels like the inner critic part for this example is always speaking, and like where am I behind the inner critic? I don't maybe know the difference between the two, and that's pretty common. So first, just know that there's a lot of normalcy that's there, and the core self can be often referred to as the conductor of parts. But when the inner critic is holding the mic with a death grip, then it's like, is that me? I'm confused about who I am. But even just this awareness that you've had is the beginning, is like the wedge that's opening the door and opening the windows. And starting to understand that your higher self would probably not speak to you in the same way that the inner critic would. So when we hear a should that comes out the mouth, you should get up at 8, not 9. You should eat this. You should date more. Whatever it is, we know that the inner critic has the mic. And from that point, we're like, okay, have the awareness. What am I feeling? I hear that. Okay, what am I feeling? Oh, that makes me feel bad. It makes me feel ashamed. It makes me feel small. Whatever it is, it makes me feel hot, uncomfortable. Where is that in the body? And just starting to develop that relationship and understanding that you can carve that inner critic out and give them a seat as opposed to them being like basically in your lap almost in a way. So I offer that to you with also the suggestion to give yourself grace in this process. I think also in this world where you have like Amazon Prime, it's like, I want it now. And the realistic part is that sometimes these things take time. And this is a loving, unfolding process that once we understand that there is this part that's speaking this to me, then, oh my gosh, now I've suddenly met this part. And that's introduced me to this part of me. And it's never going to stop. This is the beautiful process of discovering what's true for you. And the more of this type of parts exploration that personally I have done, the more I realize that the way that I actually speak to myself is very kind. Mm-hmm. That's a loving voice underneath it all. So anytime there's another voice that has the mic that's not loving, then I know somebody else is speaking, if that makes sense. But just give yourself the gentle awareness to begin to explore that. And it sounds like you've already got that, so this is an exciting time. And I appreciate that question, and I see a lot of head nods in the room, so I know that resonated.
Yeah.
So thank you. Was that helpful? Okay.
And what a beautiful place that you're at is that, well, I don't know what the actual highest self me sounds like yet. And what a cool journey you're stepping into. Write it down. That was really, really, really helpful. Is like they have little avatars, all of my humans inside. They do. Ages, looks, clothing, as detailed as you want to get, paint a picture. And as May said, the highest self, spiritual self, divinity self, whatever you want to call it, is cool, calm, and collected. Cool, calm, and collected. It is certain. It is grounded. If you've ever done something that you've been lost in it, you've been so present in it, like something, for me, it's this. I love doing stuff like this. There is no other really chatter. That's your highest self. That's your highest self. That's operating from your heart space. And you'll start to notice the patterns of these different avatars of the inner critic. You know, my little girl, she got her arms crossed, and I found a letter in here that I wrote her. I folded the page down, and I'm like, okay, there's that pattern again. As May said, what is that? What does the inner critic typically feel like? What's the tone she talks to you? Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it loud? Is she loud, or does she whisper it? You suck. You know, how does she talk to you? And starting to build that avatar, and notice the things that bring you alive and make you feel alive. And that's usually when you're in your heart space. Yeah. Ooh, what a fun journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's taken me years. Are you still working on it?
Oh,
I'm still working on it.
This is a forever commitment.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm married to myself. We're in a long-term relationship.
Well, yeah,
We've got to work through this shit for better, for worse.
Damn,
you
you
know?
got a twin? You got a twin? Hook me up.
Oh, girl, I got
Hook me
you.
up. That was a great question.
Yeah, it was.
Really great question.
David, do you have a
Just a quick follow-up
Yeah.
question? Because I feel like one of the goals is for us to try to organize ourselves into these parts in some way, right? Like you're saying that the inner critic rules you, and I agree, because I feel like my inner critic is almost commenting on all the parts of me, right? Like the lazy David, or like the mean or judgmental David, or like the motivated David. Like that's kind of this overarching, voice that's always commenting on those and like judging them individually. So do you have recommendation on like if we're trying to organize or journal about this, like is there a number of parts we should focus down into? Like You said you mentioned like 5 or 6.
Yeah, so that's a great question. The 5 has helped me. I'm sure there's a zillion.
Right.
The 5 helped me. It was simple. It's the inner critic, the inner child, the shadow, the heart, and the ego. And what I did, and there's tons of research, maybe we can share tons of research on what those parts actually are and where they come from. We have the inner child. That is one of the first formations of our consciousness is the inner child, because it happens from, some say 0 to 7, some say 0 to 12 years old, and we're soaking in all this information. And so, and again, remembering, it's like, imagine the meddling aunt. Right? Anybody got one of those in their family? Got a meddling aunt or somebody who likes calling this person, oh, you hear what happened to them? Then hangs up the phone, calls this person. It sounds like your inner critic just kind of has his hand in all of the things. And I love that. Cool. That they like to have that comment. But those 5 parts really helped me organize. And the more research I did and understood why those parts would show up, when those parts would show up. And I'm happy to send you guys the activity. It's literally a dinner table, and it just kind of takes you through what the 5 parts are. And the challenge is create an avatar. How old is he? How old is that inner critic? And here's the cool part, I think, the really fascinating part, is the voice of your inner critic is usually your parents. It's usually your parents.
Damn.
It's usually... Yep.
You just lay it down with that one.
I was tempted to call my inner critic my madre. And if you notice and you think about, like, what are some of the things that, and maybe not exactly, right? I hear this voice, like, you're not doing enough. My mom never said that to me, but she acted that way. Constantly. My mom has never stopped moving. I don't stop moving because that's what how I was raised and saw as, like, this is success and this is productivity, is when every hour of your day is filled. So pay attention to that. Where is this voice coming from? And what are they actually wanting when they're commenting on all the, why do they feel like they need to have the word? Is it that because they need that attention? So I'm happy to send you the activity with the breakdown. But those 5, and again, yeah, I'm sure there's a bazillion, but those were a good starting place. And you hear about them, right? Have all of you heard those words before, inner critic and shadow, and yeah.
Yeah, these are really good questions.
Great questions. Keep them coming.
Keep them coming. Do you have one more question?
I just have a question based off that. What would be the difference between your inner critic and your shadow?
Okay, so the question is, what's the difference between your inner critic and your shadow? I mean, they can be two different things. In fact, it's hard to answer that, because, like, what is your shadow is, like, a completely individual question, I think. The inner critic is always going to tell you what you should do, period. Your shadow might be something different.
Yeah.
Of just, like, there's, the shadow is like, I always wanted to be rich and famous, and now I'm rich and famous. And the shadow side of that is, like, I don't get any privacy. I can't even go to the supermarket without being recognized. So, like, with everything, there's the light side and the shadow side. Yeah. So, like, what is the shadow side of you? Maybe there's multiple parts that make up the umbrella of the shadow.
Yeah. And I like to think about it. Something that really helped me was the parts of you that you are ashamed of and you want to disown. And oftentimes they're the parts of ourselves that we've pushed because if we think about when was the shadow created, and stop me if I start to get too deep, because I will keep you guys here because I get really nerded out on this, because it is really fascinating. The shadow is born from the inner child. When the inner child learns, here's a story, and this is totally made up, but imagine this happens to you. You're 5 years old, you're in the kitchen, your mom's baking a cake, and she's going out of the kitchen and to, like, go get ready for your brother's birthday party, and she says, Danielle, don't touch the cake. Don't touch the cake. I'll be right back. But, like, you're 5 years old, and, like, first of all, you put chocolate around me. I was so mad at you that you put Reese's out. I was like, damn it.
Sorry about that.
I had 3 of them. Somebody hide them from me. But you're 5 years old, so you're like, the cake, right? So you go up to the counter and you pull up a chair and you go to reach the cake and you knock it on the ground. And your mom comes down those stairs and she comes into the kitchen. Danielle, what did I tell you? Bad girl, go to your room. Like, you're so selfish. I told you not to touch the cake. And you're 5 years old. Of course, your mom doesn't mean, like, you are a selfish human, you suck, die. But 5-year-old you hears, I'm selfish because I went after something I wanted. So you grow up your whole life, you make this assumption and association that if I go after what I want in life, I am bad. And so the shadow side of that is the shame around ever going after something that you want because you're ashamed of it. For me, a big shadow of mine has always been my jealousy. I was so ashamed. I grew up jealous. I don't know where it really came from, but it's there. It's present with men, with women, and not like relationship jealousy. I'm really solid in my relationships, but like in business and, you know, because me and my mom, it was like, well, especially with women, like there is no room for every woman at the top. So like you better win the presidency. I've been president of an organization since I was in first grade. First grade. I mean, does a lot of good things to a human, but does a lot of fucked up things too. Writing on pencils, wristbands, do not remove until Danielle Gertner is president. Oh, Mom. Okay. But that shadow side, right, of the jealousy of like, especially when I moved to Austin, I saw all these incredible people doing amazing things, and I would feel the green monster, like, I'm coming out, I'm coming out, I'm coming out. And I'm like trying to keep the closet door closed. And I was really ashamed that I felt those things until I just let her out. And I let her sit at the table, and it didn't become a shadow anymore. And the last thing I'll say on shadow is a lot of times we don't see them because they're in our shadow. And so one of the most beautiful things you can do if you have close friends and amazing people like I do that I trust that would tell me something that might hurt me, but their intention is not to hurt me, it's to make me better. He tells me things like that a lot. In an uplifting way. It's not I'm going to hurt you, so I'm going to tell you this. He's like, I'm going to call you up because you need to know this, and you're not seeing it. So if you have somebody in your life that you can say, what do you think one of my blind spots are? What do you think one of my, something I can work on? And, mind you, take it with a grain of salt, right? Neutrality. But if somebody you trust, I trust his opinion over most people in my life. And if he tells me something, it's one of my besties, I'm going to listen. So that's always helpful too, because we don't always know what our shadows are. But they do. If you think about what are the things that I feel really ashamed of, I wish they weren't a part of my life. If I could rid myself of them, I would. Carl Jung says, where your fear is, your task is. And if you're afraid of those parts of yourself, shine the greatest flashlight on them. Shine the greatest flashlight on them, learn them, love them, understand them, discover where they came from, and welcome them into your home and into your life, because you will learn so fucking much from them. So much from them. Yeah, great question.
Bam. All right. So with a lot of this work, oftentimes, first of all, it's beautiful. Second of all, oftentimes there's this complaint of like, we can talk all day about these things, and these are all concepts in the air that kind of like don't exist. So what's nice, what I want to give you is a task or an action that you can take away and start this process of taking a deep dive, should you feel called. And that's totally up to you. All of this is a suggestion. And one great way that you can start, and we started with the inner critic tonight because unfortunately and or fortunately, that is something that for the most part we all can relate to. I've all been felt like I should do this because of someone else's expectations, So we kind of understand what that voice is coming from ourselves. So we can start there. And from the perspective of the inner critic, write a letter to yourself. Dear May, you shouldn't have said potty on the podcast. You lost them.
I love you.
You fucked up, okay? And you can write this whole letter. You made everyone, and just go off. Take that, put 15 minutes on the timer and go off. Write this letter from that part to yourself. And then you can also respond in a letter. So this way it's not like we're trying to conceptualize something, or it's like I can't grasp it because I don't understand it. Put a pen to paper and write a letter. That is very I can understand what that means. I understand that task. So take that as a suggestion for you to walk away with, should you feel called to, and you have your little guidance sheet too of maybe some questions you can ask or some prompts of how to get there.
Got one last thing.
One last thing. All right, take us home.
So from that, writing the perspective as the inner critic, you're putting that hat on. And then the reverse of that. This is a letter I found. Dear baby Gert, Lil D. and you tell her, I see you, I hear you, all the things that she is not hearing, not listening to. So I'm adding homework to your homework. Write the letter write the letter from the lens of the inner critic, and then write a letter back from you, from your highest you. And don't think too much about what to say. Take a deep breath and just because she will talk through you. I've asked questions to the universe before, and I've just felt this like, pick up the pen, write, there's the answer. So great homework. Write all the letters. Yeah. Build all the dinner tables.
Build them all.
Build all the
And also know it's a practice, not a perfect. So give yourself lots of grace, lots of love, and lots of compassion. And just know it's like a snowball rolling down the mountain. It's going to grow over time. Sound good?
Maybe you'll have one of those like ginormous Italian families. Where like the great-grandfather sits at the very... Is anybody Italian? Where the grandfather sits at the very top, right? The head of the table. Yeah, nobody else is sitting there. And there's like 30 other people at the table. Maybe that's your internal family. How cool is that? How many people you have to get to know? They're crazy, but they're funny, right? Right? The crazy families, they're funny, they're lively. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yes. Maybe be entertained by our parts and love them through all of their challenges. Thank you all so much for being here. We could probably talk all night, but let's put a pin in that one and
come back for round 2.
We'll come back for round 2 at some point. Thank you all so much for being here. If I can invite you, if you don't already, to follow the podcast, which is Stories from the Subconscious. My intention is to grow and expand through the process of storytelling. So this is like a little flavor of that here tonight, and specifically through the stories of women, because our voices need to be amplified and heard. Danielle, how can we connect with you? How can we find you? What's up?
First of all, thank you. This was so cool. Thank you so much.
Fun.
What a gift and beautiful space to be in with all of you. On Instagram, Danielle Gertner. I also have a podcast called the Own Your Shit podcast, which we talk very similar things, which is one of the reasons May and I connected so deeply, is because like, you're kind of talking about it through the lens of ownership, and I'm doing it through hypnosis. Like, oh, wow. So please listen to the podcast, Instagram. And for my ladies, if you're around Austin, Warrior Women ATX, would love to see you. And grab one of the flyers or pamphlet things, whatever they are. On the back side is something called the Own Your Shit Audit. Just want to invite you to do that. It's just a way to check in with not necessarily like the parts of you in terms of inner critic, but the parts of your life. How do I rate my play, my relationships, things like that. And message me. I'd love to be friends with you.
Yes.
Best friends.
Forever.
Forever.
This has been another fabulous episode of the Stories from the Subconscious podcast. For more podcast goodies, hypnosis offerings, even a consciousness-expanding book club, and so much more, visit patreon.com/beliefsystem. And finally, I know you know, the thing about stories is that the more that they are shared, the more powerful they become. So please share this episode or leave a review of what resonated with you most, because you never know who you may help in the process. Until next time, storytellers, stay curious.